unwarranted, unnecessary acts of aggression. Can they get you everything you want? Can they free you from money problems? I don't know, but today I'm going to find out. Welcome to Total Warhammer 3, where using the colour green, we will attempt to solve all of our problems. For today, we will be playing as this charming fellow. He goes by the name of Grimgor. We begin in the mountains near Cathay. To our immediate north is a bunch of violent Walmart shoppers, led by Targog. There he is. Our first major battle goes well, introducing Targog to our favourite war tactic, a great big melee. It's not long before we press that big button and begin our war. After the battle, we're presented with several options. We choose war crimes. This replenishes our troops slightly, and we were ready to take out Gorger Rock. Nothing a quick auto-resolve won't handle? Hiring some of Targog's own people into our mob, we increase our units as much as we can in preparations for taking out the rest of the province. What's important is that we take out the ogre camp. In doing this, we prevent them from recruiting some of their stronger units. It's important that we remain strong after this, so we adopt the raiding stance so we can get some replenishment. Let's bring up our whiteboard. It's at this point that we should introduce you to our victory conditions, for which we have 3. The first is to reclaim Albion, the equivalent of the UK in the Warhammer fantasy world. To do it, we will have to battle our way through a majority of the map. Second is to confederate any other green-skinned lords we happen to come across. Beating their leader will help us rapidly expand, and if we're successful, we'll be taking an awful lot of their territory for our own. Our last is to completely survive and destroy the endgame crisis, whatever that ends up being. It's at this point as well that we should mention that we do have a rule for this campaign. That rule is no diplomacy. Simply put, we are greenskins. We can't read. At the start of turn 3, we come across a caravan, so we immediately declare war. Rest assured, this won't have any long-lasting repercussions.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which suggestions or warnings about events to come are dropped or planted.
It's turn 8, and our armies cost us more money than we are making.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
This means we will need to take that money from our neighbours. This leads us to declaring war on both the orcs and the ogres to the north, while keeping a cautious eye on Kolek. Don't do it, Kolek, it's not worth it. Kolek seems to have his own problems with Tamarkan to the north. Not quite sure why these ogres have repopulated Ice Spewer, but we'll be taking it. So we'll send Skulk over to Ice Spewer, while Grimgor deals with their main army. We seem to be making money again, although just slightly. What is that army, Groth? This victory puts us dangerously close to being able to call our war. A war will essentially just double all of our armies. Of course, we do also have to keep an eye on Tamarkan, who is getting dangerously close to us. Now for our war, the target that would make the most sense would be the Disciples of Hushut. We declare our war for Gork and begin our descent upon them, leaving ourselves somewhat open to Tamarkan. That's not too bad of a result. We take the opportunity to auto-resolve Astrogoth out of existence, and with that, gain a foothold in their lands. As always, we choose replenishment, as the money will come, but we need to keep our armies fighting for now. We recruit ourselves a third lord. We settle on Nasher, and for the time being, we're going to fill his army, predominantly with trolls. With our main armies, we march ever forward, straight on to the Chaos Dwarf capital, our main target in this war. Of course, disaster strikes when the unexpected happens over the end turn. With Tamakan at our doorstep, we had to do what we could. So we took the auto-resolve on the Chaos Dwarf capital, resulting in...
Nice.
Tamakan did, however, start taking our northern settlements, which meant all of our focus would then be on him.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
It wasn't long until we caught up with him. We took our 3 armies that had been in the Chaos Dwarf territories and removed him like the rot he was. There could be no peace, just a green tide seeking vengeance. And we would have that vengeance. We crashed our waves against them, a flurry of clubs and choppers. With our superior numbers, we would drive them from our lands. Our rocks crushed many underfoot, but still they persisted. Their many demons assailed us, but this fight was ours. It was time for our war. Our troll brethren collapsed inwards, and it was over for their cavalry. Unable to stand before us, they vanished. Victory was ours. The first of many. Now is our time to strike back. We amassed on our previous border, began our raids, and pushed in. Soon the very mountains would quake with our name. And so we marched undaunted by their number. While Grimgor would be able to take this settlement by himself, it wasn't about that. It was about sending a message. That message being complete annihilation. Tamakan could not stand against our onslaught, and very soon he'd be begging for peace. A peace that would never come.
No, 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 no! Wait! Wait!
Grimgor was, at this point, an absolute unit, capable of taking any single unit by itself. Of course, with this level of power, it wouldn't be long until we would see victory. We marched ever onwards, taking everything we could from Tamakan. He would, eventually, ask us for peace, which even if we could read, we wouldn't accept on principle.
If those kids could read, they'd be very upset.
We would eventually sack his capital. 14k. Very nice. We would hope this would stand as a lesson to any who would stand against us.
Oh no! What happened?
With the north now secured, we turned our attention back to the blasted wastes, and the orcs to the south. However, it wouldn't all be good news. We would come to find that we were too late, and one of our targets, Skarsnik, had been taken out.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
If we wanted the other legendary lords, we'd have to act fast. Confederating these orcs to the south of us would be the first step, and it should solve our money problems, at least for now. To protect Azag and get us more points towards our war, we jumped Ungren. Not exactly like the dwarves were our biggest fans to start with, The more we took now, the better off we would be when we finally declared our war against the Chaos Dwarf capital. Nice, he's down. We continue raiding as we push deep within the mountains, forcefully putting ourselves between the dwarves and Azag. While this is happening, we look to upgrade Grimbil's troops. The basic orcs, they're just not cutting it anymore for him. So, we go with Biggins. It's here we come across our secret weapon. Raiding stashes. Doesn't seem like a lot by itself, but these stack. Combining it with this technology, we'll be making an awful lot of money from sacking settlements. This dwarf hold only further proves this point. Already seeing the benefits, we declare our war against the Chaos Dwarves. But not just any Chaos Dwarves, the Servants of the Conclave, who just so happen to be one of the strongest factions currently in the game. Our first assault onto their lands proves to be very profitable, and although we want to resist, that's an awful lot of money to turn down.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it!
Keeping our armies together, we're able to take anything that they throw at us. Tell me, Slayer King, do you have enough Slayers? Maybe not this time. Let's hope the rest of the turn is almost as smooth. Even this valiant defeat just goes to show that they don't know who they're dealing with, as Grimgul's right there. Well, guess we're fighting it. With a singular choke point, we set up our catapults. We also amass our troops to charge down the middle. They may have superior firepower, but it won't matter when they're engaged in melee. Come on, smash through, break their ranks. Reinforcing from behind the enemy, we should be able to pincer them quite neatly. Fearlessly we charged ahead, although we would need to send some of our troops to deal with their reinforcements. Nevertheless, this would be our finest hour. By focusing our assault on their first army, we could send Grimgor in to deal with their lord and any single unit entities that they had. We would crush them between two threats, our numbers overwhelming. We used our other troops to hold their second army in place, although they did take the brunt of the firepower. Their role was important in making sure that we crushed the first. Only then could we advance on the second. It wasn't long until their first army crumbled. Despite similar numbers of troops, the tide of battle was shifting towards us. With their first army in pieces, we would leave Grimgor to clear up, while the rest of the units would move towards the reinforcements. Might as well have Scram take out their leader while we've got the chance. Have that be just another quick hit to their morale. With Grimgor killing their single units, soon the balance of power began to shift in our favour. Look at him go. Before long, we only had the unbreakable units left to deal with. And they wouldn't last long. Unbreakable does not mean undefeatable. Since nothing stands for very long once Grimgor gets there. Our reward for such a battle, 10k in a severely beaten army. But it wouldn't be enough. Taking the replenishment, we would be on them next turn. While Grimgor's army was in a fine state, we would need reinforcements to take this capital. While we could just fight the battle manually, we did have other armies in the area. Unfortunately, it looked like Nasha may not be enough. Thankfully, we had Grotznik, with nothing but our finest troops. Fearlessly we marched him in. With careful manoeuvring, we fought them in the fields and not the city. For a siege was not in our best interests. It would cost most of Grimgor's army, but it would be worth it. The 17,000 from battle was just the tip of our prize. Much greater riches lied within the city. With our new acquisitions we couldn't sit on our hands. It was time to expand. Why have 6 armies when we could have 8? But first we would swap all of Grimgor's army for nothing but the Black Orcs. Because who needs strategy when you're bigger, meaner, and tougher than the other guy? And so we began recruiting, while keeping an eye on Azag, and making sure that when our next confederation would be over, we would be able to snag him. Maybe just a few more catapults in here. Seeing as how Drycha seemed to have the Nemesis crown, we would bide our time. Our armies in the area, however, were a little bit too weak just to jump Azag. And so we would just resume our recruitment. More Black Orcs, more armies, more of everything, we could afford it. And despite losing 4k a turn, we had our eyes on our next target, the remaining dwarves. It wasn't just the normal dwarves. With his army now rebuilt, Nasha headed north. With Drycha looking to remove Azag from the equation, we'd have to put ourselves between the two of them. We would have to find and beat Azag as soon as possible to confederate him. Kinda defeats the point of what we're trying. Thankfully he returned, just in time for us to declare war on him. It was a surprise beatdown like no other.
You must be my bitch tonight. Yeah.
A little underhanded maybe, but we are saving him from Drycha. Still, we had cannibalized our own. Was this what it meant to be the strongest? With Azag secured, we moved in on the Chaos Dwarves, sending both Nobba and Nasha into their lands. Honestly, this was not planned, this is just how they ended up. At the same time, we would declare a war on the other dwarves, not these guys. And just like that, it was time for us to go on a tear. So naturally it's time for a montage section. So we'll add a few orcs here and cue the music.
Oh no! Anyway.
While Zartan would be a nuisance, it would prove to be Drycha that would be the biggest thorn in our side. We would continue to chase her around the map, only to be ambushed over the end turns. Very troublesome, but we'd try and fight this. Well, shit. On other fronts, the ogres asked us for peace.
You serious?
But there would be none. We should introduce you to our second secret weapon. This building. As you can see, it has global recruitment capacity +1. And this stacks, so if we can get a few of these, we'd soon be able to produce massive armies very, very quickly. Taking the dwarves' capital and some much needed cash, we found our next target, Wurzag. Now if we could just find the opportune time to jump him, we could add him to our roster. In the north we laid an ambush for Viltich, one of the more problematic lords. Despite failing, we'd still be able to get rid of him, with the auto-resolve costing us most of our backup army. Still, considering how much of a pain he is to normally fight, I'd consider that a win. Next turn we finally cornered Drycha. Marching both armies in, we would claim the Nemesis crown for Oglok. Back in the south, Wurzag had done us a favour, and had removed the dwarves. So we took the opportunity to declare war on him, and, you know, repay the favour. With Wurzag now ours, that only left Grom. Let's hope he was doing as well as the others had. Well, except Skarsnik.
One more to go.
Our Confederation had added quite a bit of land to our territory, and we were no longer in debt, with a whole +22. This did mean we would have to deal with Elsbeth, who was eyeing up our freshly acquired settlements. Despite all this though, we sallied onwards, taking the north. Although Elsbeth would prove to be a nuisance attacking our undefended settlements, we would eventually catch her. But until then, we'd settle on just removing the Wood Elves from their Griffin Wood. Sometimes you just have to take the little victories, like genociding an entire race. And with Ezek back, we sent him down into the Empire as well. Very little could stop our advance, so we continued, taking settlement after settlement. Our borders expanded, as did our strength. We used Wurzag's old armies to try and slow Elsbeth down, although she routinely evaded us. In the meantime, we ignored Queek and marched our troops over towards the Forest of Gloom. With the northeast mostly secured, we pushed into Cathay, taking the vacant Dragon Gate. and sending Grimgor into the Forest of Gloom. Our efforts were beginning to pay off. Soon we would rid ourselves of Drycha. We marched Galger up. There was no point losing more forces than we needed to. And like that, she was gone. Hopefully we wouldn't need to deal with any more Wood Elves. Each settlement adding to our accumulated wealth. Soon we would find ourselves back in the positives. Although over the end term, Imric declared war on us. I certainly hope that works out well for you. On the Elsbeth front, try as we might, she just eludes us. Just out of our reach. What a pain in the butt. Better not stop running, Elsbeth, or Grimgor will catch you. We continue to take settlement after settlement, although what would happen next would change everything. We resumed marching south through the mountains, taking Greasus' lands. It was nothing more than a fairly standard auto-resolve. Just like that, the endgame crisis appeared. And who would it be but vampires? With 10 turns until their arrival, we prepared. If we could finish off our current wars and set ourselves up, we'd be in a much better position for when the vampires finally came. And so we did just that, pushing into Cathaith on the north, determined to take out Viltich. As long as there was no sudden surprises, we'd be fine.
Hello, motherfucker.
Yep, that seems about right. Not only had Zhao Ming decided to show himself again, things were going to go from bad to furry.
Oh, come on!
Perhaps this was our mistake for leaving them alive for as long as we did. It was a painful lesson, but one we had to learn. They took us by surprise, but our troops were never far from the action. In fact, next turn, we took it right back. By this point, our global recruitment was able to field half an army a turn. And the number of armies we had was 15, significantly more than anyone else. Our green tide was met with resistance, but it would not matter in the long run. Vastly outnumbered, we took to the field. We had a plan, but it involved us sticking to the corners. We would lure them out to us, the plan being to use the garrison to separate them, and that was an absolute bloodbath. A complete disaster. But it worked. We sprung our trap. We took to the field, charging their more valuable units. Caught out of position, it would be some time before the rest of their army would catch up. We would cut down their mortar teams, with them only getting off one shot. And so we descended upon them, their superior firepower pointless in a melee. We We burst through their hastily defended front line, while the others would flank. As victory was ours if we could just box them in. If we could keep their guns in check, it would only be a matter of time before we cut them down. We came around the back, surrounding them with an angry green. Although they had managed to sneak out several guns along with some leaders. But Oglok would catch the more troublesome of them. The magic of the crown we stole from Drycha was devastating. So we peeled back. The men of the Empire were not confused for long, though. As it would cut through their ranks. Despite all this, they held firm, determined to use their firepower. With our Wa, however, we could not be stopped. And before long their main force crumbled. All that was left was the leaders, but they too folded soon enough. It may have cost us a garrison, but we destroyed their forces. Back on the map, we decided to pay Imrek a visit. A strong foothold here would only make dealing with Gorst much easier. Meanwhile, the men of Nuln tried Oglok again. We wasted no time, charged from the front. There was little they could do but hope to hold the rest of us at bay, while Oglok had his fun. Our main forces charged up the hill, eager to exchange blows with their swordsmen. Their line would not hold long. In fact, in less than 3 minutes, we would burst through. As their lines buckled, we surged through. And they folded just as before. Our crown grew ever powerful, emboldened by the latest victories. So of course, we kept it. We cut through Nuln's home territories, all the while not quite able to catch Elspeth. All this rapid expansion, however, would serve to push us into debt. We salvaged what we could to keep ourselves afloat, during which, somehow, Grecius did this. And, seeing a chance to kick us while we were down, they just kept piling it on. This was our most painful turn by far. But that pain would be repaid tenfold, starting with the Skaven. Yeah, I don't want to fight that. We needed money, and to end our current wars. Thankfully, the Red Fortress did provide. We continued to sack every chance we had. Raiding wherever possible as well. For now, at least, we pushed Cathay back. And while we lost troops, they could be replaced. It was important, however, that we finished our wars, and Grecius was first. We punished him for his previous transgressions. And moved in to take the rest of his lands. Meanwhile, we had Azag prepare for Vlad. He would reappear at Castle Drakenhof, and we would be ready. It was just 4 turns until they would be back. Before then, however, we would teach the dragons of Cathay some humility. It would take 2 armies, but with Zhao's defeat we could concentrate on the vampires to come. We resumed removing chaos from Cathay. And, seeking a little bit of cathartic release, decided to play this one-sided battle. We would adopt the tactics best suited to us, the ones we intended to use till the end of the campaign.
Prepare to charge! Scroll over him with your mouse cursors! And right-click!
It was a massacre. We surrounded them on all sides, and left very few standing. We prepped an ambush just in case, and turned our attention away from the south to the Skaven who had wronged us. Wurzag was more than a match for their pitiful garrison, crushing them underfoot. A literal magical foot. That's so satisfying. And despite their resistance, our orc magic quickly shattered the morale of any who sought to fight us. You're a bit late to the party, the fight's over. Some very awkward positioning meant we couldn't get the fight with Imric that we wanted, so we'd have to settle for an ambush. Though 40% did seem quite low. In a similar way, Thrin had managed to position himself in a way where we couldn't quite attack him. So we settled for taking back our settlement. We would make sure that Queek would learn this costly lesson. But we would spay and we would neuter until there was nothing left. Our economy continued to somehow prosper, each victory granting us more gold, each sack further filling our war efforts. We held on to our Wa, for when the vampires came it would be our greatest asset. And with the retaking of the Moorgate, we would claim all these mountains as ours. Finally we had caught Elspeth. Well, Scrag caught Elspeth, but brought us in as reinforcements. That's a long way. And Scrag, being the tactician that he was, just allowed himself to take wave after wave of artillery fire, again and again. Like, seriously, he's gonna be dead before we even get here at this rate. I mean, do we just let this happen? Is he just going to let himself die before we get there? Come on, move! Come on! Do something! With Scrag fleeing the battlefield, it was finally our turn. This beatdown had been a long time coming. Her force is now surrounded. Her fight with Grimgor went about as well as you would expect. Not even a dragon could stand against us. Scrag, also somehow still alive, sent his troops in to reinforce from the back. Yeah, this doesn't look very good for you. Bye, Elsbeth. And after countless turns of chasing her around, she was gone. Zhao did his best to apologize.
I'm so sorry.
You're sorry? Now? Why? You were just doing your job, right?
Which we couldn't accept. Our 40% ambush somehow worked, catching the smaller elf force. And so we did just that. It would cost Gouger a lot, but the more we took from Elsbeth now before the vampires came, the less we'd have to fight on two fronts. Not that it would take very long to regain those troops. This ambush, however, hadn't worked, but Vilchis was silly enough to stay within range, so we took him out. Same with removing Queek from the map.
And there was much rejoicing.
We took as much land as we could, and even drove Imric south of Pigbarter. Then, the turn before the vampires arrived, the game wanted us to increase our difficulty. We'd keep it as it was for now. We had positioned ourselves to surround the vampires when they finally declared war on us. Not that every army was full of our finest troops. Our chasing down of Imric, however, had led to Helman Gorst being very out of position for when the vampiric ascension happened. So we moved in on Pigbarter, ready for next turn, where we'd be able to cut him off from the rest of his troops. Well, here we go. Ah, crap. Come on. Oh. Oh, we won that. Alright. And so the endgame begins. These 5 would rise up. I really would not want to be Stoneheart at this point. Seeing Gorst's strength rank at 2, he would make the best target for our Wa. And so we pushed into the vampire lands, and we would take what we could before they could counterattack. Pigbarter and Shambletown fell quickly. With our Wa, our 20 armies would become 40. Azag alone would stand against Vlad's forces. It may say a valiant defeat, but he's got this. Right? that is why I hate terror. Goddamn, I should have won that. We would take whatever victories over the vampire counts we could get though, even if it was as simple as just removing one of their stacks. And, to make ourselves feel better, we proceeded to bully Imric. And remind him of his foolish choice a couple of turns ago.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Badly made Imric PNG aside, we were doing quite well at the moment. Our earlier prep meant that we had a lot of bodies to throw immediately towards Hellman. It was important that we didn't let this vampire crisis get out of hand. Frankly, Hellman hadn't been doing too hot, so he didn't actually have that much land, making it a lot easier for us to keep him contained. The same couldn't be said for over in Bretonia. We did have Grom still on the map, but no clue as to exactly how strong the vampires were at the moment. But we would continue to take our little victories, securing Cathay and taking out another vampire stack over the end turn. By this time, Grimgor was here, which meant that this army wasn't going to be here very long. Now this fight with a Vargeist and a Black Coach we decided to fight personally. Not that we changed our tactics any, and soon... Oh, that's satisfying watching that get crushed. As a test for our strength, we set Grimgor against the Black Coach and... yeah. Not that the battle itself lasted very long. 3 minutes was more than enough. Hellman, however, decided to try and surround Pigbarter, which we weren't having any of that. We'd take out any individual stacks we could reach, with each army lost being a much bigger blow to them than it would be to us. Speaking of which, the goddamn rats decided to come back. This would not be forgotten, but we had bigger problems at the minute. 3 armies down? Very nice. And of course, they came for Pigbarter. We'd take it back. No worries on that front. Somehow this old man had mastered Lightning Strike, cutting off our reinforcements. We would unfortunately take this loss, and the one immediately after it. Not without, however, getting rid of a good chunk of his units. Meanwhile, Grimgor was having absolutely no issues with any of the armies they sent after him. In fact, it only made sense to fight this. They had plenty of strong single units as well as leaders and heroes on the field. So, a good chance to test out Grimgor. You know, eventually when he managed to wade through the shambling masses. Come on. It wouldn't be long till we sent this old man to the care home in the sky. With a single hit, all it took to take off more than a quarter of his health. With Grandpa freshly returned to his dirt nap, we turned our attention to their other leaders. And it wasn't long until the rest of them began to crumble to dust, like many a care home worker. With victory in sight, it wouldn't be long until we could take out Vlad. Just 3 armies stood between us and removing him from this crisis entirely. And of those armies, they were all pretty beat up. Yeah, this wasn't going to take very long. the Gorse front we had retaken Pigbarton, although we had lost some ground around Shambletown. But we could replace our armies. Them, not so much. And so we moved in on Scrap Towers. If we could hold on to it, it wouldn't be long until we could take the Haunted Forest itself. And we'd be able to reduce the vampire threat from 4 directions to 2. In the meantime, Wurzag's job was to repay the Skaven for that ambush. And in their attempt to get away from us, they had split up, making them easy pickings. Zhao, please stop begging us for peace. Well, that was very underhanded of you, wasn't it?
Oh shit, here we go again.
Once again punishing us for not finishing him off, Zhao was back in the mountains, making our lives difficult. Just how many armies are you going to throw at me? Calm down. Here Castle Drakenhof stood, but a single army defending it. And just like that, Vlad was gone. Faction destroyed. At a similar pace, we were cleaning up Hellman. Choosing to lightning strike this battle for no other reason other than to try and save the giant. This left us with Oscar, but he soon pieced out. In fact, our vampire cleanup was going so well, despite sacrificing this army, we would be done fairly soon. We even had Icky here, just ready to take Ruin's End. In fact, as long as we didn't find ourselves in any new wars... Oh, never mind, I spoke too soon. Really, Meow?
You bitch. You did it. Stupid, stupid bitch.
For a while we had adopted a live and let live policy of the northern provinces. However, now we would have to make an example of them. Eventually people would stop declaring war on us, right? But for now, we'd settle for retaking Mingzhu and Nobly Gorge. As well as punishing Zhao for once again entering our lands unprompted. Like Sylvania before it, just one settlement stood between us and removing the caravan of Blue Roses, and so we pushed on undaunted, taking each army as it came. And it was only in sieging the Haunted Forest that we came across their trap.
Oh no! How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
At the same time, Grecius decided to rear his head, and this was his army. Not looking too hot. We'd catch him on the next turn and make quick work of them. But don't ask me how he managed to take Kugath's area. Taking no chances, however, we brought 2 of our armies in to deal with Hellman and the Haunted Forest, sacking it for a considerable amount. Occupying it soon afterwards just to remove him. Not only have we destroyed the caravan of Blue Roses, it did appear on the next turn that Grom destroyed his vampires as well. So to celebrate, we put these peasants against these rock abominations. The results of which will shock you. No, they won't. It was perhaps the most one-sided fight we'd seen in a long while. Now imagine this. The guy that says he owns your land tells you to go and fight a literal mountain, and it's not going well. People you grew up with crushed underneath each of these falling rocks that keep reassembling themselves. So yeah, that wasn't exactly fair. 10 turns later and we had expanded exponentially, taking over most of Cathay. In fact, it was time for another war. And at this point, honestly, Grom seemed to be our best option, as it would make for an easy war if all we had to do was catch him and beat him. While we looked for Grom, we decided to pay the Empire a visit. That visit was, however, several rogue idols and catapults. So, yeah, a good time. Finding ourselves quite content with giving the surviving soldiers PTSD for the fucking ground, we moved on. Confederating Grom would give us a great increase to our lands, and more than likely put us within arm's reach of our goals. With Grom now ours, we had land from Cathay all the way over to Bretonnia. In fact, we even had some land on the Dono. Albion, the very land we seek, was just above us as well. So without delay, we took to the seas. Soon it would be ours. Spreading south to the Badlands, we found Manfred, and it seemed he'd taken quite a lot of territory. Thankfully, adding Grom's lands to our own seemed to fix our money problems, and so we threw ourselves wholeheartedly into our endeavours. First Albion, then the Badlands. It seems, however, Manfred had other ideas, trying to jump Wurzag. And so we claimed the Isle of Wights, our first step to conquering Albion. Our reinforcements, including Scram, were a little too far away from us. So, despite our valiant efforts, Wurzag would find himself outnumbered, although he would greatly reduce their numbers. Without much of a force left, we would have to fight this one. So we took to the field. We'd do what we could with our magic, but it was only a matter of time until their lord on a much faster unit would catch us. A solid stomp would, however, reduce that unit of skeletons to practically nothing. If we could keep ahead of him, we may be able to whittle his troops down. Easier said than done, though, as he still managed to get several hits off on us while we were casting that magic. We would keep this up as long as we could, however, it wasn't long until the troops that we had brought with us decided to flee the battlefield. And although it had taken them multiple armies, the vampires took out Wurzag. Christ, Manfred, how many have you got there? Wurzag might have been caught out, but he wasn't alone. For we had been spreading south ourselves, taking many lands from both the Lizards and the Tomb Kings. And so we renewed our assault, beating Volkard into the dust. The Lizards sent out 2 full armies thinking they'd be safe, though this did little to deter Scram, who engaged them both. We amassed our forces on Albion, ready to take it, removing Be'lakor from Albion in one swift strike. He seemed almost surprised. With Albion almost fully secured, we just needed to focus our attention in the south. And so our focus was on the immediate threat, taking out Rudy and finishing our conquest over in Cathay. With the east of the known world secured, we would head out to sea once again. By using these whirlpools, or sea lanes as they're called, we would appear on another place on the map, so we set sail. Where they would reappear, we discover in a few turns. Until then, we needed to remove the forces around Khemri. Wagner and Lysa would be first, but Raynor would prove to be an unexpected pain in the back end. At this point as well, I should mention that our money problems were long gone. Battles such as this one were giving us tens of thousands of gold, and we already had more than 1 million in our treasury. Mopping up what we could of the forces around us, we would lay siege to Khemri, although we didn't have any siege attackers. We would send more of our ships out to the New World. Wherever this may lead, our presence would be felt. The Citadel of Lead was the last of our Albion provinces we needed, and like that, we had claimed the island. Now, only Manfred stood in our way. That and the multitude of other wars that we had somehow managed to get ourselves into. We weren't quite sure exactly how far Manfred's territory reached. It was possible he was over here, although the corruption on the map implied that he was much more likely spreading south. They came out to fight us at Khemri, so we took that victory, although it did cost us quite a few of our already injured troops. Shouldn't prove to be too much of a problem as long as we're fighting on just the one front. Yep, that seems about right. To add to this, Rapance seemed to be getting a bit too big for her boots at strength rank 6. Grom quite graciously seemed to have rid the world of most of the Bretonnian scourge, but we'd have to pick this side up. And her opening gambit was killing herself.
Why are you the way that you are?
On a more positive note, we had finally finished our voyage, finding ourselves in Lustria, surrounded by vampires, Cathay, and, worst of all, more Bretonnians. We continued our assault on Manfred's forces, starting with Raynor, who decided to retreat to Bretonnia, who for some reason decided to reinforce him. He did, however, pursue us, allowing us to, at the cost of our army, basically wipe him out. And so Dieter, not wanting to let Rapance have all the fun, decided to kamikaze our settlement. Grabbing some regiments of renown, we decided to put down Raynor like the bad rash that he was. And by that, I mean it's like the 4th time he's come back. With Rapance and the vampires in bed together, the area was looking a bit difficult, to say the least. Not that we could stop with our expansion, since if Ikit was going to war with us, we might as well take out Clan Moulder as well. They refused to join you. At the same time, we'd do the world a favour and get rid of the last remnants of Cathay and Bretonnia down here in Lustria. Or at least we would next turn. Naturally, the Skaven proved to be the bane of our existence, taking out Oglok. We would likely have to divert a few forces to deal with him. Rudy proceeded to be a gigantic pain in the butt by repeatedly attacking us. He was even backed up in this second battle by another Rudy. Ikit was, for some reason, held up around the Oak of Ages, seemingly having eaten the Wood Elves alive or something. Still, we were able to recruit a lord and fill his army all within the space of one turn. Not to mention that our lords were starting out at level 18. Very nice. The assault of the regular-sized Rudies continued. However, we had the forces to get rid of this one at least. And if it wasn't Rudy, then Rapance would be sending another army our way. Thankfully we could retreat this time, but it was starting to get to us.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
While we did have reinforcements on the way, we would still need to hold Khemri. The Bretonnians didn't seem to want to fight, so instead, we'd take out the vampires here. Each stack that we took out would not be easily replaced. And, having made our way through the lizard men, we would find ourselves down south by Orion's camp. Another settlement we could use to reduce the vampire corruption in the area. We had sent Grom to investigate Skavenblight, and found it quite empty. But seriously, what happened here? Did the Beastmen kick Ikit out of his own home? And he's fine with them? That certainly seemed to be the case, as they weren't at war with each other, and Ikit had just moved over here. Not that Ikit would be about much longer, as we had Grimgor already within his lands. And unless he ambushes us with multiple armies, I don't think he's going to stand much of a chance. Speaking of armies, we had 40. 41 to be exact, and it was costing us an awful lot of money. Over the intern, we intercepted 2 vampire armies and took the chance to try and delete them. Meanwhile, Bretonnia decided to speedrun its own genocide, forcing us to wipe out 2 armies against a garrison. Not sure why they did that.
Why did you make me do this?
Immediately afterwards, Wurzab mopped up any survivors from that little mistake. In somewhat of a misplay, it seems that the vampires had left multiple of their armies in the march stance. This meant that if we could catch them, we would wipe out that entire army. This is despite the vampires' proclivity for constantly coming back. And so we did just that, cleansing them from our lands. And on our way to the Black Pyramid of Nagash, we came across John Clement, just standing in a field. So we decided he needed to meet multiple armies. On the other side of the world, we continued our righteous crusade against the Bretonnian filth. And just like many before them, Rapance would be begging for peace, and we would say,
no.
Peace was just never an option for us, not for you or for Wulfric. The Black Pyramid also fell to us as we whittled down Manfred's territory. Each city reclaimed for the living would put us that much closer to our goal of ridding the world from them forever. Seeing our chance to bully Rapance, we cancelled all of our recruitment, just so we could catch her in that march, as we were prepared to give her the spanking she clearly never got as a child.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more! Where the fuck are your parents?
This had been about the 8th army she had marched directly into us. And quite frankly, I was getting sick of her not learning her lesson. Meanwhile, we had 2 of our armies peacefully exploring the south of Lustria, which also seemed to be infested with Skaven. We'd leave them be for now, as we had no plans on the continent, but they were definitely on our radar. It seemed this time we caught Dieter trying to sneak through the underground, so we took the chance to get rid of him. We had also reclaimed Sudenburg for Volkmar, who had lost the Baldorf with Manfred. It was at this point that Nakari signed his own death warrant. We couldn't make peace, so it simply was not an option.
Yeah.
And so, we were at war with Slaanesh. With the end fast approaching, we stormed the Sun Tree Glades. Our plan was to siege the city, so Wagner, who was waiting outside, could be separated and destroyed with a minimal of fuss. In fact, it went so well we were able to immediately siege the city and take Wagner out as well. Our ability to recruit had also increased. We could now recruit our strongest units, the Black Orcs, in just a single turn for an entire army. Wolfric continued to be a pest, harassing the lands we had just recently taken from him, but we'd be back and we'd make him pay. At this point in the game as well, we had no use for the Nemesis Crown. We were already strong enough. In fact, as far as we could see, we owned most of the land. About half the map was currently ours. Manfred notwithstanding, we only had a few wars to actually fight. First, Bretonnia. But they wouldn't last too long. Tricky here, we could move into Zandri. And Bogrob, well, he'd do this. Money as well had become a complete non-issue. We were making so much from each battle that we'd practically never run out of money even if we tried. At just over 2.5 million, Manfred only had 2 cities left for us to take, and then we were done. Make that 1 city. And so, with only about 2 turns left, we moved towards... yeah, I can't pronounce that. As we passed our turn, we received our ultimate campaign victory screen. Someone else had taken out Manfred. It seemed quite strange to us, as all the other CPUs seemed quite happy to hop into bed with him and just declare war on us. And so here it was, just shy of 3 million gold. We had finished our campaign.
Some time later.
Now, while I had finished all of our goals, we still continued to play the campaign to the end. As you can see, we took everything. That's every single faction, every single piece of land taken. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. We have another Total War video in the works. Hopefully this one doesn't take as long. And now, a quick preview of that next video. It's a tale as old as time. A love story for the ages. And it's just like being back at high school. There's the pretty boy, the bullying, and plenty of firearms. Plus, not to mention, that girl that you have a crush on, she gets a train round on her. So tune in next time, and see you soon.